Hello and welcome back to Voice After 50. I'm your host, Beverley. So today I want to talk about something that I do that drives people mad and that I'm not entirely proud of and that I'm fairly sure I'm not alone in. I'm a control freak. Not in a dramatic way, not in a way that anyone would necessarily call me out directly on, but in a way where I'll watch someone doing something, tell myself I'm just keeping an eye on things, and then, without really deciding to, I'm in there, doing it myself, or at the very least, hovering so obviously that the message is pretty clear. I don't think you're going to do this as well as I would. I've done it at work, I've done it at home, I've done it when the stakes were genuinely low, like embarrassingly low, and I still couldn't stop myself. The thing is, in the moment, it always feels justified. It feels like I'm helping. It feels like I'm just making sure things go smoothly. It's only afterwards, when I catch the look on someone's face or when I'm lying awake at 11 wondering why I'm still doing everything myself, that I think, oh, that wasn't really about the task at all, was it? So that's what today is about. Not in a fixing you kind of way, because I haven't fixed myself and I'm not about to pretend otherwise. Just let's have a proper look at it, where it comes from and what it's actually about. There was a specific moment that made me actually stop and think about this. My son decided to make scrambled eggs one morning, something I'd done hundreds of times, and he was fine, perfectly competent. And as I stood in the kitchen doorway, I lasted, I want to say 2 minutes, but honestly, it's probably less, before I said, very brightly, "Here, let me just," and stepped in. His face, that's what got me. It wasn't annoyance exactly. It was more like a sort of tired resignation, like he'd been expecting it, like this was just a thing that happened now. And I remember standing there afterwards, genuinely baffled by my own behaviour. Because I hadn't been trying to undermine him. I wasn't trying to make a point. I honestly thought that I was being useful. But the disconnect between what I had intended and what I actually communicated was so wide I could have driven a bus through it. The thing is, when you've spent years being the person who sorts things out, it stops being something you do and starts being something you are. It gets tangled up in your sense of yourself. And so when someone else handles something, even handles it well, there's this odd little jolt, like, wait, if they can do that, what am I here for? Which I know sounds a bit dramatic, but I think that's actually what's happening under the surface for a lot of us. It's not really about the task. It never really was. I've been thinking about how this actually develops, because nobody starts out like this. Nobody's born unable to let someone else load the dishwasher. What happens, I think, is that at some point in your 30s or 40s, being reliable, being the one who shows up and delivers and doesn't drop things, becomes your thing, your identity almost. People know they can count on you, and that feels good. It should feel good because you worked hard for it. But somewhere along the way it tips. Being dependable quietly becomes being indispensable. And indispensable sounds like a compliment, but it's actually a trap, because now you can't hand anything over without this gnawing anxiety that it won't be done right. You can't step back. You can't let things be slightly imperfect. You've basically made yourself a hostage to your own standards. And the really sneaky part is that it doesn't feel like a problem. It feels like conscientiousness. It feels like caring. We tell ourselves, nobody else will do this properly. I'm not being controlling, I'm just being responsible. And sometimes, genuinely, that is actually true. But if you're honest with yourself, and this is the bit I had to get honest about, most of the time it's not really about the standard. It's about the fact that doing things yourself is familiar and predictable and safe. And handing things over is none of those things. There's a difference between being useful and just being busy. And I've spent a long time being very busy and telling myself it was the same thing. That being productive and always doing is a good thing. So if it's not really about the tasks, if the nobody else will do it properly thing is mostly a story we tell ourselves, what is it actually about? For me, when I get really honest, it comes down to this. If I stop being the person who does everything, then who am I? Which I realise sounds a bit bleak when you say it out loud, but I think it's more common than people admit, especially for women who spent 20 or 30 years being competent and capable and needed in approximately 17 different directions all at once. The doing becomes the identity, and the identity becomes very hard to let go of, even when the doing is exhausting you. Because stepping back raises a question you might not feel ready to answer. If I'm not managing everything, if I'm not the one keeping all the plates spinning, what do I do with myself? What am I actually worth if I'm not visibly, measurably useful? That fear of being irrelevant, of being replaced, or finding out you were perhaps not quite as essential as you thought, that feeling is real. I'm not going to brush over it, but I've come to think that staying glued to things you've outgrown isn't the answer to it. It just delays or postpones the question, and the longer you postpone it, the harder it gets. The stuff worth doing next, whatever that looks like for you, doesn't have room to develop while you're still doing everything you did 10 years ago. Something has to give. I want to be careful here not to make this sound easier than it is, because I think a lot of advice on this topic skips over the bit where it's genuinely uncomfortable. Handing something over and actually leaving someone to get on with it, not hovering, not checking in 3 times, not quietly redoing it later, feels wrong for a while. There's this restless, slightly anxious feeling like you're forgetting something, like you should be doing more. It takes a while to recognise that feeling as just the unfamiliarity of not being in control, rather than evidence that something is actually going wrong. What's helped me is trying to remember what it felt like when someone trusted me with something before I felt entirely ready for it. The people who actually developed me weren't the ones who watched over my shoulder and corrected everything. They were the ones who handed me something, said they reckoned I could figure it out, and then more or less left me to it. That was what built my confidence. And I think about whether I want to be that person for the people to be around, or whether I want to be the one who always steps in. Because you can't really be both. If you're always stepping in, you're always quietly communicating that you don't think they can manage without you, which is not, I suspect, the impression most of us are trying to give. Right. So, what do you actually do about it? Because I don't want to spend 15 minutes going, isn't this a fascinating problem, and then just leave you with that. I should say I'm not standing here with the answers. These are just things I'm working through myself in real time, and some of them are helping me. A bit, on a good day. The thing that's made the most difference for me is just noticing the moment before I jump in. There's always a moment. Someone's doing something and there's this little pull, this urge to get involved. For a long time, I just acted on it without thinking. What I'm trying to do now is catch it and ask myself, does this actually need me? Or do I just want to be needed? Those are different questions with different answers, and it's worth knowing which one you're actually responding to. A lot of the time, if I wait even 30 seconds, the thing gets sorted. Maybe not exactly how I'd have done it, but done. And I've had to get more comfortable with the fact that done, but not quite how I'd have done it, is usually absolutely fine. Because my way isn't the only way. It's just the way I'm most familiar with. The other thing I'm working on is actually handing things over properly, rather than in the way where you technically delegate something, but remain so present and so full of opinions about it that the person might as well have given it back to you. If I'm going to ask someone to do something, I'm trying to tell them what I need it to achieve and then let them work out how, which requires me to care about the outcome and not the method. Still a work in progress, to be honest. And then the discomfort of the gap, that slightly at a loose end feeling when you've let something go and you're not quite sure what to do with yourself. I'm trying to just sit with that rather than immediately filling in, because I've noticed that that's usually where something more interesting starts to come in. I'll be straight with you. I will almost certainly step back in and take something over this week that I should have left alone. It's not a solved problem, but I think the noticing matters even when the behaviour doesn't immediately change. Because underneath all of it, the jumping in, the inability to let things be done differently, the exhausting sense of responsibility for everything, there's usually just a person who cares a lot and hasn't quite worked out yet that caring doesn't have to mean controlling. That you can want things to go well and still let someone else be the one who makes them go well. That's the bit I'm still figuring out. And maybe you are too. Thanks for being here today, and if any of this felt familiar, the slightly uncomfortable kind of familiar, I'd love to hear about it. Share it with someone who might recognise themselves in it too. And I'll see you next week. Talk soon. If you enjoyed today's episode, I'd love it if you could subscribe, leave a review, or share it with a friend. It really helps Voice After 50 reach more curious minds just like yours. A quick note, the content of this and all podcast episodes is for general information and entertainment purposes only. It's not professional advice, counselling or therapy. Please consult a qualified professional for any personal, medical or psychological concerns.